People fear what they don't understand, and this is a real shame given that we, individually and collectively, all need the right type of education. For example, when one is living without understanding the cyclical history of human nature, its transformations over various phases of human activity, nor the essence of our spirituality, it can be very difficult to enjoy life fully and respectfully. As a teacher who thrives on knowledge and the delight experienced when being creative and traveling low cost, for instance, I'm more convinced than ever that what is being taught in educational institutions worldwide and overall is in great need of reform. I spent my life mostly living in Australia and Europe, although I also lived in Japan and South America for more than a month in each of these places. I also visited for several weeks at a time other countries such as New Zealand, the USA and the Emirates. In fact, mainly mixing with the locals and learning about our diversities and interconnections, I've been indeed very fortunate to experience some of the different lifestyles in more than 40 countries so far. I notice that everyone seems to have part of the answers for a life that is well lived and enriching. Yet, in the field of education, and far too often in my opinion, I also notice that subjects are still tackled in isolation to each other and not respecting how life works via its interconnections and rhythms. My point is, therefore, that in order to live a fulfilling and satisfying existence at peace within and without, an understanding of our interconnection with each other is vital, and this will enable us to enjoy what our beautiful earth has to offer. In turn, this can then be reflected in the way we live, with the whys, hows, when, and what to teach. For example, recent scientific findings in physics, biology, chemistry, and revisited ancient texts, culminating in clear graphs and scans on the human brain that were presented recently in scientific circles, and are supporting and providing many facts that the majority of the population has yet no idea about, are not being taught in the classroom. I ask myself why this is so, and I equally question other facets of democratic life, such as the worldwide practice of covering one's back via massive administrative procedures that take the focus away from the more important and gratifying tasks in our jobs that we would rather be doing. In that case, for example, in the classroom, having more time to take care of our students individually and collectively, and not always having to worry about tests, for example. We often react in fear, afraid of global repercussions of future and awful human behavior. Yet, these, more often than not, had been supported by higher levels of leaders interested in culling the world population under the presumed ongoing protection of their status and power, which they got from the people. In essence, as I see it, like frogs under boiling water, having become too frightened by the 24/7 horrid news thrown at us, we are gradually being deprived of our human rights in exchange for a false sense of protection and welfare that, as we can see, have done anything but solve colossal disasters in all fronts. Instead, when people are provided with a loving home and educational environments that are sound, they truly reflect interconnected ways and natural lifestyles. This elevates our souls. Eventually, we are led to the meaningful and enjoyable experience life is meant to be. This, moreover, can take us into the healthy and conscious living practices, pro-life and caring, with longevity well surpassing the Hansa tribe's average lifespan of over 100 years, for example. This tribe of people, which is not really a tribe, in fact, they're very beautiful beings, lives near Pakistan in the Russian part of that part of the world. And they know how to live with each other in a spirit of harmony and cooperation. And they also know how to eat well and how to live in their environment peacefully and in harmony. The choice, as always, is individual and collective. As indicated in some of my other presentations, when 10% of the global population focuses on the same positive intention, that is, by seeing the positive result as already happening, an amazing transformation does take place, as has been proven over and over again in several American crime rate experiments that were amazingly reduced in the 80s through the power of prayer as an intention. Of course, once this is achieved, it also needs to be sustained over time, until and eventually such consciousness becomes an integral part of our thinking, being and living life daily. Having researched subjects such as metaphysics, philosophy, anthropology, and ancient texts, especially in the last couple of years when I've had the time to do so, I came across referencing all along from sources that most likely were totally unaware about what was happening elsewhere in similar ways. My findings have been very encouraging for the positive growth of human consciousness and its inherent positive and pro-life changes. Humanity is once more at the point of proven interconnections. Although life needs to be lived honorably and respectfully at an individual level, it is time to relearn about cooperation and sharing, that is, whilst retaining our pro-life and sacred individual diversity. The way we've been going on of late has shown that we're now at risk of losing our grip over a peaceful life for all on earth. In fact, the reality that has been forced upon the many throughout the centuries has frequently led to the stronger individuals dictating their law even under the banner of democracy. This in particular happened at high times of crisis, when the majority of people were desperate for any leader and guidance. When the level of individual and collective consciousness increases, such people are no longer sought out nor invited to take over the destiny of the multitudes. Fear leads to more of the same. Negativity is no different, and the same is certainly true for the opposite. When our thoughts and action make us feel in harmony with life, people, our surroundings, instead, not only do we feel better, but more positive and enjoyable results are manifested all around us. How would you rather live? Why are such truths not being taught in practical ways during the compulsory years of education? The ancients knew such things. In addition, why are the students in their formative years, with growing bodies often relegated to chairs for unending hours of lessons, made to learn like so? I'm not sure that it is mainstream knowledge that in the ancient Greek times, for example, philosophers walked with their students, and this is when most of learning took place. And I wonder if it's common knowledge that in old China, when monks were trained, they were often not allowed to have textbooks. They had to commit their minds to memorization, and there were appropriate systems in place to enable this to happen. Why is such knowledge so relevant to all, not being taught in mainstream education? These types of questions have been baffling for me for years. I was getting more and more disillusioned by some educational practices I was part of. I now dream of a world on earth where everyone wakes up, where students are encouraged to search for themselves and their peers the real truth about life and its awesome mysteries, in the serenity and safety of caring and not impersonal educational environments.